When are people gonna realise that I've just been wearing the same 4 shirts in every single video?
Jane Eyre, or Jane Eyre, by the other Brontë, Charlotte Brontë, in case you were gonna mix it up with Emily Brontë from Wuthering Heights. Jane Eyre. This is the first ever classic novel I read outside of school, so that was actually pretty... And I feel like it was a very good book to read as a first classic novel out of school because it's a good book. You might disagree if you're in school and you have to analyse it to death, but personally, just as a general reader, I think that this book is actually really entertaining. It has a lot of plot twists, it has likeable characters, and I was generally entertained by the whole book. I didn't really feel like there were any slow points. Yeah, the whole thing was pretty entertaining. So we have our character Jane Eyre, and we follow her through the book and her adventures, essentially. The plot centres around her and a man called Mr. Rochester. They have a bit of a thing, but you don't know if like they're into each other or they're not into each other. It's very complicated. That's what I'd say the main if you had to summarize Jane Eyre in like a couple of sentences, you just say it kind of centers around her love with Mr. Rochester and how it works. But the book's a whole lot more than that. You've got all these different subplots, like you have her child, like the whole first volume is about her as a child, and then I think the third volume or later in the second volume, you see her get to like move on. Thornfield? Is it Thornfield? I'm just gonna say it's Thornfield because I actually forgot. I haven't read this in about like 5 months. I know, I just like talking about books. I'm reading 1984 at the moment, so I'll be able to talk about that a lot more in detail. Yeah, so the first volume of the book, where Jane Eyre is a kid, I think it's very interesting that she is like a really smart kid. Like she's reading about Roman emperors, like at 8 years old or some bullshit. Like, I was not reading about Roman emperors when I was 8 years old. Who does she think she is? But I mean, obviously it's a retrospective novel, so the whole thing's told in past tense. However, still, and then it goes to show why is her memory so good when she's so young, but no one's going to talk about that, will they? Yeah, I think the relationship between Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester grows very naturally, and I think it's interesting. It's also interesting, I'm guessing one of the main themes of the book is how Jane Eyre is constantly considered as like not handsome, ugly, like just plain looking. And I mean, so is Rochester to a certain extent, however, he gets away with it because he has money. It's a massive double standard that I always knew, but I'd never been put in the shoes of that kind of double standard that I think a lot of women go through. The plot of the book is that Jane Eyre is at a family that Jane Eyre goes to a family that she is adopted by her auntie, and she pretty much lives with her cousins because she's an orphan. So they cause a bit of bickering, and then she heads to school, and then she makes some friends. Plot twists. Actually, screw the summary. Read the book before you watch this video. There are some really low moments in this book, and it's almost kind of... I don't know if they're intended to be humorous, but like the scene where Jane has to eat porridge from like a pig trough, and the scene where... everything around porridge, and the scene where the principal won't... the principal is like, how dare you feed these kids cheese? Like, they should have been fed burnt porridge because it builds character. Like, what a asshole. There's a lot of really tough moments, I think, for Jane Eyre where she really has to test herself. I think independence as a theme is really important, and I think it's interesting how Jane Eyre has to really find her independence in like and I mean, it is a patriarchal society in 19th century England. Again, it is that 19th century England setting, so if you're into that, then this is a really good book to kind of immerse yourself in that vibe. I think as characters go, Jane Eyre specifically, she is a very relatable character. She's a bit too smart for her own good. I mean, it's like, how did you figure that out? Actually, no, not necessarily. There is a few secrets kept from us. Look, Jane Eyre is a smart character. She's relatable, and I think her struggles are probably a lot of us feel. I mean, there's so many people in this book that are just assholes, and like it's really awesome to see Jane persevere. She really perseveres, and it's a book about perseverance. I think they call it a Bildungsroman in German. She definitely builds a lot of character in this book, and I think it's all very well earned. And I think that's why it's such a good book and why it's held up to this day, because even you take away all the analysis, it's still, as a story goes, it's still a very good story, because she really doesn't take, she takes it, but she moves on through that. I think Mr. Rochester, I think she jukes him, like, the fact that he was married beforehand is like, oh my god, like, that wouldn't even fly in this book. It's interesting how, like, back before there were phones and shit, like Jane could easily just text Rochester, like, whatever she wanted. I think the relationship between her and the priest, I think it's the priest or the pastor or whatever, he runs like a church or something. I can't remember exactly what he does, he's like a missionary. But yeah, I think that relationship is really interesting, because I thought that Jane was going to go with him. However, she didn't. She stuck it out for Rochester. It was only until he was crippled, burnt, and blind that Jane actually liked Rochester, so go figure. Yeah, I think Rochester, it's interesting. You wonder, essentially Rochester's actual wife is hiding in the attic or something, and she's gone insane. I think Rochester got a really done deal. I think it's unfair, the kind of treatment he got. You know, it's not his fault that I mean, maybe it is, but the fact that she's so psycho, it's like, oh, that's gotta suck, man. And then Jane as well just leaves, like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of drama. You want to see Jane and Rochester get together, but then, like, oh, maybe they don't. It's a pretty quick read as well, like, I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought, man, I'm doing a reviewing this, eh? But yeah, I think the story still holds up today. I think, especially in a world where, like, we have Instagram and a lot of women are photoshopped to look prettier than they actually are in real life, and like you have all these unrealistic standards. Again, it's like you kind of get away from that inner beauty rather than like the physical. And I think Jane, in a world where that's like a big part of who gets to be in the aristocracy or the who gets to be elite or in the upper class, you have to be beautiful, and it's just I think that's even becoming more and more prevalent, to be honest, and I think we have to be aware of that. And I know there is a bit of a woke culture at the moment of like, oh, we need to we need to improve body positivity, but I also think that has also been skewed in a way. Society is very unsure of itself at the moment, just like I am. And again, this is why these novels hold up, because they're always kind of concrete. These are the problems we need to solve. Yeah, to be honest with you guys, I didn't really come prepared for this. I was just editing a video for a school project, and then it turned out that it was just, I aimed way too high when it came to editing, and I'm gonna have to refilm everything tomorrow, so I'm not in the best space. But if you have any questions about Jane Eyre at all, leave a comment, because I'll reply. And because I'll probably be able to answer a lot more coherently. I'm going to be looking at Cloud Street, and I haven't looked at that in 2 years, so if you think this was bad, subscribe and wait to see the new one. Yeah, look, I'm going to be reviewing a lot more recent books that I've read since. Anyway, thanks.